skies, and on every occasion that you do, I don't smile.
Welcome to Sensible Secondhand Reviews, the show where we look at sensible and practical cars that you can buy for between £1,000 and £5,000. This is a 2011 Mazda2 1.3 Tamura, and this is actually one of the only times where I've sourced a car for a client and I've been able to review it within 24 hours. Wonderful. So the DE or DH Mazda 2, which is the second generation car, was launched in 2007. This is a 2011 car. It's actually a facelifted one, and it's based on the same platform as the Mark 7 Ford Fiesta, which in many other parts of the world was known as the Mark 6. It's very confusing, but it's the one that was made from 2008 to 2017. Ford at the time had a stake in Mazda, and a lot of the cars did share components. There is one particular type of Mazda 2 that actually shared a Ford engine, but I can't tell you about that for reasons that will become clearer a little bit later. The engines that were in the petrol second generation Mazda 2 were variants of the old Mazda Z engine that had been introduced in the mid-1990s. I actually used to have a 1997 Mazda 323F 1.5 Innsbruck Special Edition, and that was the same family of engines as this, although they weren't exactly the same because that was a cam belt engine and this is actually a chain cam. The basic engine was a 1.3 litre, actually it's closer to 1.35 litres actually, but I'll just call it a 1.3 because that's where they're advertised, with 73 horsepower, or in the case of the higher powered version, 84 horsepower. After the October 2010 facelift, that 1.3 engine was reduced down a little bit in power, I imagine due to emissions regulations, and so developed 82 horsepower, which is the engine in this car. This is a 2011, so it's after the mild facelift. Weirdly, the facelift in Japan occurred later, and it's a different type of facelift. It's really, really strange. I don't really understand a lot of these things. As well, on the Japanese market, there was a 90 horsepower version of this 1.3, which was a millicycle engine. I don't know why you need a millicycle engine when you've got a perfectly normal one, but there we go. The top engine in the Mazda 2 was a 1.5 litre version of that Z engine, developing 101 horsepower. That was available with an automatic gearbox as well. There were also some Ford-derived diesel engines, but as usual, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. If you're wondering, by the way, why I'm wearing this hat, there are two reasons for that. One is because I am recovering from a minor operation at the moment, which was sort of to my forehead, so I don't really want to show you the stitches and things. And the second reason is because Driven 24/7 actually did a video on a Mazda 323 recently, so there we go. Anyway, back to the one I'm driving today. I absolutely love the feel of this car. This was one of the main reasons why my client actually chose this one. We did see a few yesterday, but this was the one that actually she chose, and wow, they do drive really well, these cars. It's not surprising because of the Fiesta platform actually, but Mazdas in general have this way about them. They have had for years. They are a little bit firm on the suspension, but they just handle really well. Somebody at the chassis engineering department at Mazda who understands how to make a car handle really well, have what we used to call the zoom quality about them, which was still a tagline when this car was made in 2011. Really nice little 5-speed gearbox. If you can go for just a normal 5-speed manual, that's probably the best in these, to be honest. Very, very nice steering. It's an electric system, but it seems to be very well weighted. Ride in these post-facelift cars is a bit better than the earlier ones. It's not quite as firm. Decent brakes. Good driving position as well. Just really set up for somebody who likes driving. And I like driving, as you might have guessed by now. Apologies for the wind noise, viewers. The car actually looks, in this particular shade, even brighter in real life than it does on the video. I think this is actually quite a good looking car, really, considering that a lot of cars are getting a bit uglier as they go along. It does look very nice indeed. This is a very low mileage example. It's done 44,000 miles, so you know it's barely run in really for one of these. The boot is a little on the small side for the class. It's not too bad, but considering that at this time a Corsa came with a 285 litre boot and this is a 250. Now it doesn't look particularly small, but the dimensions just tell you it's a little bit smaller, but it's okay for I think most people. And Mazda actually stamped their logo on there. That's very good. If I just lift this up here, you can see we've got a space saver spare wheel in there. The tools just live in there. Should put a light on, shouldn't I? That's been sort of turned off at some stage by someone. That's actually fine as well. No USB ports, things like that, or 12-volt sockets in here, but it's okay. It's nice and easy to lift up. Overall, this is quite a light car. It weighs only about a ton, which for a car made in the 2010s is actually very light. This Tamura trim level has a rear spoiler, which makes the car look actually a lot better. You have to be quite an expert to spot the differences between this and the pre-facelift model externally, and the main one actually is the shape of the lower grille here underneath the number plate. It is a different shape on this facelifted car. You didn't get fog lights on the Tamura, although that's the second highest trim level. You only got them on the sport model. Yes, I think it does look rather nice. I'm going to sit behind myself. I've put the seat in my driving position and I'm just around 5'11". Fortunately, a bird's done its business overnight on the car. It was really clean yesterday when we filmed it. Sorry, no, not filmed it, when I sourced it. I do apologise. One thing that is just typical of cars of this class is just the door cards are not particularly exciting. It's a very well-made car and everything. It's just they don't have fabric on them or anything. But whether that's a problem for you is really up to you. Unlike in something like a Corsa, all these models come with a split folding rear seat, I believe. Yes, you can put those down, but there is quite a step in the floor if you do that. Just pull my right leg in. It's a little bit cramped in here. I mean, you know, obviously when if you're a little bit shorter, it's not a problem if you don't like the sort of MX-5 style driving position that I've got here. But it's not actually too bad for a car like this at all. It feels a little bit more spacious than a Mark 7 Fiesta for some reason. That just might be my imagination, because they're both placed on the same platform. They're probably about the same. Wind-up windows in this one. I think you had to go to the sport trim option to actually have rear electric windows. But to be honest, most cars like this at the time had wind-up windows in the rear and the mid-spec like this is. I just think it's a nice place to be. The seat fabric is fairly pleasant as well. There's no armrest or anything like that, but you do get a central rear headrest which you can put down so it doesn't become a problem when there's nobody sitting here. Also, you get this enormous kind of tray thing down here. I think on higher trim levels you could probably put you know, an accessory there to sort of break that space up a bit, but certainly throwing a load of oddments down there is not going to be a problem. Let's move around to the front. Right. Sheep bleating in the background, as well as that wind and the road and things. I do apologise. It's not, I would say, like, you know, identical to an MX-5, but there are certainly elements in here that feel like the NC MX-5, and of course I drove one of those in August last year, actually not too far from here in Winchester. The facelift models do have slightly different interior trim, although it's not that different from the pre-facelift ones, and I drove pre-facelift one a few years ago actually. Lovely, lovely 5-speed manual gearbox. Somebody at Mazda knows how to make those feel really nice. Very, very simple heating and ventilation controls. Absolutely no issue whatsoever. I think if I, oops, sorry, knocked that with my finger. If I turn the car on like that, it says hello. Hello. Or should I? That'd be konnichiwa. That's a bad joke, viewers. Right, anyway. This is a 6-disc system. You actually load the discs in one by one, pressing that button there. It's similar to actually what was on the original generation Mazda3 in that respect. Very, very, very peculiar glove box system. So you could put things in the front there, but that's not actually that helpful to me, because you really want to go into sort of there. So this is supposed to be a magazine rack. It doesn't actually quite fit the ignition documents to fit in the compartment at the back. Oh, viewers, why does this always happen to me? You'll have to go kind of like that. It's not ideal, really. I suppose it could go in the door pocket, which actually has bottle holders in it as well. Yeah, that's fine. There we go. Yeah, it's very comfortable. There's cup holders, and there's this thing here you could, I suppose, move if you wanted to create more space. Here you can. Yeah. Aux in point here, 12-volt socket. That's all you need, really. I think my friend's going to be getting some floor mats of this as well at some point. One thing I really like about this car is the stalks for the indicators and the wipers. Excuse me. They just feel really, really nice and kind of high quality for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know why that excites me so much, but it does. Yes, sir. I'm only going on a short drive today, so I shouldn't run out of fuel, hopefully. I just like the way this instrument cluster is sort of designed. It just feels, it feels very sporty, which is good. Blank switch down here. I don't know what that would be on higher trim models. Who knows? And on something like a Sport, I think you got cruise control here, which is why this side of the steering wheel is actually blank. But there is a leather gear knob and a leather steering wheel, which feels good. Although we only have two. We only have two electric windows in this car. Does that power folding mirrors? Oh, viewers! I mean, they're quite loud power folding mirrors, but they're power folding mirrors nevertheless. How exciting. Right, let's take a look under the bonnet as we're here. Those of you familiar with 1990s Mazdas might recognise that oil filler cap. It is exactly the same as the one I used to have in my old 323F, and the same as was on the 626 that I had a few years ago too. So this is the Mazda Z engine. I forget the exact code for this one, but it's actually a chain-driven engine, twin cam 16 valve with variable valve timing. This was the last car I think this engine was actually used in, and it had a long life of about 20 years. I think the reason why they continued to use it was a bit like Ford's Zetec SE stroke Duratec stroke Sigma engine, in the sense that they just kept improving it, and there was no reason to change it for something else because it just kept going. This car is actually only £30 a year to tax. It's the post-facelift version with the tweaks for Euro 5 emissions, and so it does, I think, on average something like 51 miles per gallon on the old NEDC cycle, though whether you'll get that is, well, debatable. It's not particularly difficult to sort of see what's going on, although that coolant reservoir, it's a little bit sort of difficult to see where the level actually goes. You have to sort of put your head like that. Right, viewers, some country roads. We might even actually nip down to the M271, which is a very short motorway and one of the only ones in the country with a roundabout in the middle of it, but maybe we won't, because the surface on it isn't very good. Very much set up as a little driver's car. I think these post-facelift cars do have better suspension. The rider just felt a little bit more compliant rather than just having a really, really firm edge, so that's very good. It's such an enjoyable little car to drive in comparison with, I don't know, something like a Corsa or a Polo. It's just a lot lighter on its feet, just with much better steering. The engine isn't particularly powerful, it only has 82 horsepower. It's about the same as a 1.25 Fiesta at the time. But it actually revs nicely, and that variable valve timing system does have an effect. I think 0 to 60 in this car is something like 13.2 seconds, but it feels an awful lot better than that. Just balancing it around this roundabout, that feels really, really good for a little car like this. It's kind of a shame that actually the most powerful version was 1.5 with 101 horsepower, because this chassis could definitely handle a bit more power than that. Certainly with the Fiesta, they had, you know, much faster versions than that. But, you know, never mind. It's also reasonably quiet. The cabin's quite well insulated at higher speeds, and you can imagine doing, you know, reasonably long motorway journeys in this with absolutely no problem whatsoever. Yes, it's a car that perhaps isn't perfect, nothing is. Maybe a little bit lacking on the practicality stakes compared with some others. But the thing that swung it a client yesterday was just the way this car drove, and it was by far the best of all the three that she tried. I suspect many of you would enjoy that too. Apologies once again for the mounts in the way, and I'm afraid it's just the way that it goes on this channel. Let's have a look at some Mazda2 trim levels. This is the DE Mazda2. There was one made at the same time with a different chassis code called the DH, but if somebody can tell me what the difference between the DE and DH Mazda2 is, then please tell me, because I couldn't find any information about that. Answers in the comment section below. So the standard trim levels were TS, TS2, Tamura, Sport, and then the TS and TS2 were replaced quite near the end of production with the SE trim. Then there were quite a number of special editions. The Black Edition, I've no idea what the difference between those two is. The Colour Edition and the Sport Colour Edition. The Colour Edition only came with a 73 horsepower engine. The Sport Colour Edition came with the 82 horsepower engine. The Sport Venture Edition, just the normal Venture. The Takuya, don't know what that means in Japanese, maybe somebody tell me. The White Edition. The car was actually built in a number of other places apart from Japan as well, such as China, Thailand, Colombia, Iran and Vietnam. So it was a popular car for Mazda, but for some reason these never took off in this country in the same way that a lot of other things, like, I don't know, a Vauxhall Corsa or Ford Fiesta or something like that would do. And I think that's a bit of a shame, because these are pretty good cars. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching this episode of Sensible Secondhand Reviews. Please don't forget to like this video, leave a comment below, subscribe if you haven't done already, and if you wish to join the channel to contribute to it on a monthly basis, then there's a link there in the description below. Don't feel you have to, of course. And see you again soon for more reasonably priced and practical motoring.